Pierre Poilievre doesn't win his seat, what happens in that case? Well, Pierre would remain leader of the party because the party is governed by the party's constitution. But within the House of Commons, the opposition, His Majesty's loyal opposition as is officially called, they would need to elect amongst themselves some sort of leader to represent the opposition in the House of Commons. The official opposition does have a leader, 164 for the Liberals now, so they're less than 10 seats away from getting a majority, so I think it's fairly safe to say that they're probably going to win a majority. 134 for the Conservatives, 24 for the Bloc, 10 for the NDP. They're almost at official party status, overperforming, yeah. The Conservative,
all just so Jagmeet can get his pension.
That's right. The Conservatives would have to elect in their caucus someone to represent the official opposition, lead the official opposition in the House of Commons, because that person does have certain duties attributed to them.
Who do you think Jenny Byrne would pick?
Would Jenny Byrne even be around?
Well, also, would that mean then an MP, would he just wait till the next by-election, or would an MP actively step down so he could run?
Good question. Does he remain leader of the party? Like, do you remain leader of the party when you had a 25-point lead that disappeared in as many days?
And go from a liberal minority to majority?
I think they'll give him, I think it's very unlikely that they won't give him another shot if his popular vote share continues to go up like this, because it's, right now, basically, people are putting Donald Trump in the act of God category, like hurricanes and tornadoes and other things like that it couldn't have been predicted. At the same time, like when you look at what Trump pulled off, right? The people who hated him the most had to realize that it was kind of a historic comeback to lose an election, pretend you didn't lose the election, end up running again, plowing through a bunch of different candidates, winning the nomination, and then getting elected president, and actually winning the popular vote this time on top of it. Like this time around, like a fourth Liberal mandate, like John Turner couldn't pull it off, Kim Campbell couldn't pull it off. It is wild that, especially after the amount of economic pain Canadians have gone through over the past 10 years, like last year, they said 23% of Canadians thought they would need a food bank. 23%. And they're still voting the Liberals in again, right? It kind of boils down to the H.L. Mencken quote I think about a lot, right? Democracy is a theory that the people know what they want and they deserve to get it good and hard.
Yeah. Well, it also goes to show you, like, you know, people didn't think that the Conservative policies were different enough from the Liberals. So they liked Carney better than Pierre. That's ultimately what it came
Likeability,
down
sure.
to.
I do think it turned into like a flag-waving contest. And Liberals are better at that because of Canada's kind of perverse progressive brand of nationalism. And I say this as somebody who, like, obviously I'm not a Pierre fan because Pierre supports abortion. If I was in Pierre Poilievre's riding, I wouldn't vote for him because I do not vote for pro-abortion candidates of any party. At the same time, I guess it depends on what you guys think about whether or not he should have pivoted hard or not. Like Corey Tenike said, should have pivoted away from Axe attacks and towards Trump way earlier on. I was kind of going back through all the past statements. The press didn't cover his anti-Trump statements because they were too busy saying that he was Trump, but he was out pretty much right away.
No, he was not. He was not.
The day afterwards, his campaign put out a couple of videos that I thought were really well done.
It was more than that. So to me, my theory has always been that there was a block of time in early January when the former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced that he was going to resign and not run again. On January 6th, he had an epiphany on the Feast of Epiphany. And there was about a week there in between January 6th and when Mark Carney, Prime Minister-elect now, Mark Carney, had his interview with Jon Stewart on The Daily Show. That, frankly, I think he did very well with. There was a week of silence. There was a leadership vacuum. And whether you agree with it or not, a lot of people were feeling a lot of angst. A lot of people in my family, friends of mine, family of my friends, they were feeling it. And, you know, I think, Pierre should have not necessarily pivoted hard, but I think there was an opportunity at that time that he could have stepped into the frame and told Canadians this is his vision of a conservative Canada, and to give them that confidence. Now, would he have solidified that 25-point lead? Probably not. Like, a lot of that would have dissipated. But right now he's behind in the popular vote. Right now he's behind in the C count. He's probably going to become even more behind in the popular vote and more behind in the C count as the advance polls start to come in for Ontario and other places like Edmonton, Calgary, and Metro Vancouver. And it was a missed opportunity. It was a missed opportunity for Pierre Poilievre. It was a missed opportunity for the Conservatives. Just because Trump is making gross threats about Canada's sovereignty and wanting to say he wants us to be the 51st state doesn't mean that the Conservatives can't talk about it. And for me personally, if you don't want to react to or not policies, but events as they come up because they're not your bread and butter and they're not things that you're comfortable with, don't run for public office, and most certainly don't run to be prime minister. This is one criticism that Leslyn Lewis had during the 2022 Conservative Party of Canada leadership race that I think was exactly on point when she said to Pierre, you don't want to run to be prime minister, you want to run to be finance minister. And even at that, at finance minister, like you look at the Conservative platform, and for a guy who ever since he was like 12 years old dreamt of being the next Baroness Thatcher, what did the platform say? It said another 4 years of perpetual deficits. They're just not as big as the Liberal deficits. Like, I understand, for example, like, you know, maybe you can't bring Canada out of deficit as quickly as you would like, but say that. Tell us it's going to take 7 years, 8 years, like have some sort of plan. So when you're talking about differentiation, you know, Carney's promising pipelines. He's promising resource development. Yes, it's a 180. It is a 180.
Yeah,
But with...
You have to be pretty stupid to believe him.
Well, okay. If Canadians are stupid for believing him, how stupid are the Conservatives because they got their asses handed to them by the Liberals again?
I think maybe it was his. I think it was his likability then, because he was always negative 20. But anybody who wants to read Carney's book, like I actually got Carney's book, like
values.
The fact, values. The fact that he could cancel the carbon tax and run out the next day. This is why I make the Mencken quote, because I actually do think at a certain point that a lot of the boomers who already have homes and don't care about the pocketbook issues that Poilievre was running on. Conservatives typically don't do well with young people. They're doing way better with young people right now. Like at a certain point, when you look at a whole bunch of people who hated the Liberals and are moving towards the Liberals, and some of them are doing it on the carbon tax issue. You can't have anything but contempt for that.
Yeah, I remember.
Because it's so cynical and it's so phenomenally Machiavellian that for them to pull it off, it says something about the electorate more than it says about the parties.
Yes, it does. But if you're a good politician, you're going to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
So when the Trump thing happened, the electorate gave permission to all the political parties, not just to the Liberals, to talk about different things, and if you have to do a 180 on the policy. The Liberals took advantage of that. Good on them. They're getting rewarded for that. The Conservatives didn't. Those 7 days when there was a complete leadership vacuum at the beginning of January, when Pierre Poilievre should have stepped into the frame and given his vision of a Conservative Canada, what did we get for him? Axe the tax, axe the tax, axe the tax.
It worked for the Liberals.
No, but they had more than that. They talked about more than that.
But they didn't even capitalize on the Liberals doing that. They didn't say, yes, this is our policy that he adopted.
That I did not
understand. They didn't take it as a win.
So that was my view. I thought that was the biggest conservative miscalculation.
Yeah.
Take the win and point out.
Yeah.
By the way, every single time a Liberal posted a photograph of at the pump with the new price, they should have retweeted it and said, you're welcome.
Yeah, exactly.
They should have trolled them hard across the board. But that level of cynicism was so breathtaking, and it was such an apparently merited insult directed at the voters that they thought they could pull it off, and that they, as it looks like, did kind of pull it off.
Yep.
And it's just hard not to look at that and
But then you also saw tangible results, because on April 1st, you did see gas prices go down. So I think that's not being gullible. It's actually seeing the effects of a good policy being...
And not thinking, hey, they could have done this at any point in the last 6 years and didn't.
Yeah, but I mean, because it was Justin Trudeau, but now there's a new leader, and he says that he's going to do this, and he followed through, and now we have lowered gas prices. So, I mean, that's why I think it comes down to likability, because ultimately they're similar in a lot of the policies, as Scott has described, but like Pierre doesn't have that likability, or even maybe that education or that background in the real world that Carney does. And for a lot of people, it just seems like he's the adult in the room.
Yeah, and his likability, that was the thing that worried me right from the very beginning. It was at -20 on Saturday. His likability hasn't, there's been little wobbles here and there, but it really hasn't moved a lot. The polls based on who do you trust more financially went all over the place based on the circumstances. How much people liked Pierre Poilievre, and I think they did the best they could have with his makeover, right? They got rid of the glasses, they made him work out, like they did a whole bunch of different stuff, and I think like in the debates we saw a much more restrained version of Poilievre. He was deliberate. They obviously told him not to be yappy, smarmy,
or borderline boring,
or like packed with numbers, right?
Yeah.
When Trudeau needed an attack dog, and Poilievre was perfect for that. But I think the makeover worked to the extent that they could make the guy over. But I don't think the likability worked. I don't have an aversion to Poilievre. I'm not a fan of. I was never a fan of his because our values are entirely different. But I didn't have the same aversion to him that other people did. But I see that it's true. Mm-hmm. He could not budge the numbers, no matter how hard he tried.
Well, there's a lot more to say on this, but let's just give our viewers